is going to figure out a way to subliminally tell us some off, bro. We seen the display the other day when she walked past reporters with her face up against the wall like this. Like she ain't want to talk to nobody. Well, I'm here to tell you, we finally get locker room footage. Now, this is something that we have not seen throughout this entire tournament. Videos of what is going down inside Team USA locker room. Now, before we play this clip, I'm going to let y'all know, this is very profound. Now, in the footage that I'm about to show you guys, you're going to see Caitlin Clark not talking to him.
The moment that unauthorized video dropped online, the public outcry erupted like wildfire. There stood the basketball phenomenon, shoved into a dark corner with her forehead practically glued to the drywall, completely detached while her national squad giggled and bonded. This transcended any ordinary athletic concentration. It painted a picture of someone who had completely detached herself from reality. Journalists remained frozen in shock while the most famous athlete on the planet behaved as though she occupied an empty room, shattering the charming public image carefully crafted by her marketing team. Instead, the footage revealed an individual desperate to be an ocean away from the very women she played alongside. One could practically suffocate on the hostility filling that changing area, finally exposing a hidden facet of the superstar that broadcast lenses deliberately ignore. Such behavior hinted at a catastrophic fracture behind closed doors, leaving spectators desperate to uncover the dark truth haunting the national team's sanctuary. Before delving into the controversial recording, observers had to understand just how earth-shattering these few seconds truly were. The stark visual evidence showcased the prodigious guard refusing to speak, keeping her gaze pinned firmly to the floor in absolute silence. Surrounding her, the entire roster chuckled, goofed off, and reveled in camaraderie, contrasting sharply with her grim, stone-cold demeanor. Whether the unseen observer captured this eerie scene right before tip-off or immediately following the final buzzer ultimately meant nothing in the grand scheme. It served as a raw, unfiltered lens into her overall state of mind throughout the entire Puerto Rican excursion. As the heavily guarded secret recording finally emerged from the shadows after being hidden for the duration of the tournament, the presentation of the visual evidence silenced any doubters. Within those fleeting frames, the remaining roster burst with joy, exchanging banter and embracing a familial warmth until the lens shifted toward the prodigy, who stood utterly alone, her gaze lowered, forcefully shutting out every human being in her vicinity. The exact timeline of the recording became irrelevant when it laid bare such an unrelenting, deeply ingrained aura of hostility. Her physical body may have traveled to the Caribbean island with her peers, yet her mind drifted through an entirely different, lonely galaxy. The body language screamed a deliberate message, loudly declaring her refusal to participate in their lively theatrical display. Her absolute commitment to isolation bordered on sheer hostility toward the collective, acting as a definitive manifesto of her turbulent Caribbean journey. The footage demanded immediate scrutiny, forever dispelling any accusations that this dramatic narrative was merely a fabricated exaggeration. This particular segment ignited a massive digital uproar, capturing the intense scrutiny of rival supporters who analyzed every frame. Originally intended to spotlight a different collegiate star's charisma, the recording suddenly begged a much darker question. What exactly was the isolated phenomenon doing back there? She simply refused to entertain the surrounding spectacle. That downturned face acted as the catalyst for an internet inferno, giving rival spectators all the ammunition they needed to highlight the glaring interpersonal fracture. Hawk-eyed viewers observed her consistently spotting the rolling lens, yet her icy expression remained completely impenetrable without a single hint of a grin or a friendly gesture. Furthermore, she firmly rejected any invitation to huddle up, fueling widespread rumors that she fundamentally lacked any desire for sisterhood or camaraderie. Giving her peers the absolute cold shoulder, she unwittingly cultivated a legion of admirers who revered her as a ruthless mercenary, unbothered by popularity contests or social cliques. Conversely, critics viewed her as a toxic presence, punishing the exact individuals whose cooperation was vital for securing a championship victory. Such an extreme degree of emotional withdrawal remained practically unheard of within the pressure cooker of international sports, leading digital sleuths to endlessly dissect her chilling awareness of being filmed. However, some argued that the brooding superstar never even noticed the recording device tracking her movements. Instead, this stark visual proved that she operated on a completely untethered echelon, willingly tuning out the entire human race. When the raw footage played back without any external commentary, the chilling reality hit even harder. Yet, the ultimate paradox of this frosty dynamic lay in the undeniable truth that the lone wolf was single-handedly dragging her squad toward victory. While locker room harmony seemed virtually non-existent, she stood at the absolute pinnacle of the national roster's offensive production during their flawless international qualification run. Posting averages of almost 13 points alongside upwards of 6 dimes nightly, she served as the unstoppable motor behind crushing victories against Senegal, Puerto Rico, Italy, and New Zealand. Furthermore, her performance metrics soared to an astronomical 15, dwarfing every other athlete wearing the same uniform. Every basket served as a lethal strike against the doubters who claimed the devastating Olympic exclusion would shatter her confidence on a global platform. Unfortunately, her escalating brilliance only deepened the suffocating awkwardness behind the scenes, creating a tragic tale where the most gifted talent remained the ultimate pariah. For those unaware of the staggering statistics masking the turmoil, the alienated star reigned supreme over the international tournament's scoreboards. The professional league sensation dominated her patriotic peers with 12.8 points, 6.3 successful passes, and a flawless 15 efficiency mark per outing. This spectacular output fueled devastating routs against multiple global challengers, permanently cementing their entry into the impending World Championship. As the narrative unfolded, her astonishing long-range missiles and masterful ball handling alongside rival prodigies propelled her to capture 34% of the tournament's most valuable player ballot, backed by a lethal 59% shooting accuracy from the floor in 41. A quick glance at the current international popularity contest revealed the isolated phenom hoarding an overwhelming 34% of the global admiration, a truly monumental feat. Her accuracy was nothing short of lethal, sinking 59% of her shots from the floor and draining well over 40% from deep territory. Those iconic long-range bombs fell with ease, accompanied by a masterful orchestration of the offense that left observers declaring her the undisputed queen of the entire event, not merely a single matchup. However, a baffling mystery lurked just beneath the surface, leaving everyone grasping for answers. The question hung heavily in the air. Why would the most dominant force on the court, a phenom topping every statistical chart, be granted a spot in the starting lineup exactly one time? From a purely athletic standpoint, the decision defied all logic. It appeared as though the team's leadership was deliberately holding her back, even as the crowd roared for her presence, propelling her to 34% in the San Juan Most Valuable Player polls, fueled by her staggering 59% field goal and 41% three-point shooting rates. She was systematically destroying the doubts left over from her 2024 Olympic rejection, right as the national squad prepared to clash with Spain on March the 17th, the very next day. With the top-tier guard widely hailed as the supreme talent, the narrative shifted toward the distinct possibility of her capturing the ultimate individual crown. Yet, the perplexing reality remained. Her starting appearances were inexplicably capped at a single contest. Spectators began to notice the jarring contradiction of a frontrunner being sidelined, a phenomenon that coincided with an unsettling pattern hinting at a complete press embargo surrounding the elite playmaker. From the moment the competition tipped off, the celebrated athlete was noticeably absent from the official press conferences beside the head instructor. She never once addressed the reporters under the bright lights following a victory, while virtually every other roster member shared their thoughts. The top point producer mysteriously vanished the second the cameras started rolling. If orchestrated by the organization, the tactic was utterly bizarre. If it was her own personal directive, the silence was genuinely alarming. The underlying mystery persisted regarding why the globe's most recognized basketball sensation was being hidden away from the spotlight. This glaring void of communication invited the public to generate wild theories, sparking whispers of a profound, toxic rift buried deep within the national basketball program. The paradox was deafening. A potential champion poised to take home the highest honor, yet restricted to initiating play a mere one time. The sheer absurdity of leading the popularity and performance metrics while only logging one starting nod was impossible for onlookers to ignore. The star had entirely bypassed the post-game media obligations alongside the national coach, ensuring that her voice remained unheard on the grand public platform. Her avoidance of the press area was absolute, missing every single opportunity, and while other players occasionally skipped interviews, the context of her dominance made her absence glaringly obvious. As the primary scorer remained hidden in the shadows, her teammates seamlessly transitioned into the role of the squad's de facto spokesperson. The young guard became a fixture at the microphones, offering radiant smiles and deeply reflective responses to eager journalists. During a recent media session, reporters prompted the newly appointed voice of the team to share what she cherished most about representing the nation. The reply she offered seemed to intentionally clash with the aloof aura surrounding the team's isolated leading scorer. She eloquently praised the forging of deep bonds and the collective altruism of the roster, emphasizing the mutual sacrifices made for a higher calling and the sheer pride of wearing the country's colors. It was a flawlessly crafted statement, seemingly designed by a public relations mastermind. However, against the backdrop of footage showing the Star Guard seemingly icing out teammates, those remarks about unity felt like a razor-sharp, veiled insult. When the inquiry regarding the ultimate joy of joining the national squad arose, the stage was set for a telling response. She noted that the true magic lay in the connections formed with elite peers, highlighting the profound selflessness and the willingness of everyone to surrender personal glory for the ultimate goal. Donning the national jersey, she explained, meant stepping into a legacy that completely dwarfed individual ambition. Asked to project 10, 20, or even 30 years into the future to identify her most cherished memory, her reflection deepened. She described an overwhelming swell of pride and pure happiness, a feeling born from battling alongside the planet's fiercest competitors under one flag. Such a monumental privilege, she insisted, was something to be fiercely treasured and never casually dismissed. Stepping further into the spotlight, the media darling actively embraced a leadership persona by showering accolades on seasoned veterans like Chelsea Gray. She lauded the veterans' unbreakable calm, her commanding vocal presence, and the immense respect she commanded inside the locker room. It was a calculated, masterful display of integration, proving her profound reverence for the established power structure of the organization. Her rhetoric focused heavily on absorbing the correct philosophies of the sport and evolving into a true facilitator. She also made sure to highlight her defensive tenacity, boasting about her commitment to racking up steals for the collective good. The entire spectacle resembled an audition for the title of the perfect comrade, juxtaposed sharply against the top scorer's apparent satisfaction with remaining an isolated powerhouse. This stark dichotomy in their philosophies swiftly transformed into the defining drama of the competition, completely eclipsing the athletic contests themselves. Journalists later probed whether this international gauntlet would refine her skills for a return to the professional circuit. She readily acknowledged the brutal physicality of global competition, noting the extreme endurance required to survive such grueling matchups. While one player openly embraced the bruising reality and looked toward future development, the audience's gaze remained fiercely locked on the immediate, unfolding drama. The spectators perceived a roster that, despite its flawless victory record, appeared to be fracturing from within. The statistical marvel was single-handedly securing the wins. Yet it was the articulate facilitator who absorbed the television spotlight and the adoration for her pristine character. This imbalance birthed a highly venomous atmosphere, wherein the unmatched efforts of the offensive juggernaut were seemingly ignored simply because she refused to participate in the off-court politics. A wave of fiercely loyal supporters rallied behind her icy exterior, arguing that the prodigy owed absolutely no false camaraderie to a squad that never truly embraced her. In the eyes of the public, she stepped onto the hardwood for one singular purpose: to absolutely dominate the game of basketball, not to win a hollow popularity contest. When a generational talent dictates the pace by leading the charge in scoring, orchestrating the offense, and operating with ruthless efficiency, faking a smile for a hostile locker room becomes a meaningless charade. The raw, unfiltered truth remained undeniably grim. The powers that be had already handed her a brutal snub for the ultimate Olympic roster, relegating the undisputed best talent on the floor to the shadows of the bench for all but a single starting appearance would effortlessly drive any fierce competitor straight to the edge of madness. Perhaps staring blankly at a concrete wall and shutting out the deafening noise served as her ultimate psychological armor, a desperate defense against a coaching staff that treated their brightest star like an unwanted outcast. The scathing commentary from the masses comparing the situation to a toxic, high school clique stung with vicious accuracy. Such accusations painted a vivid, chilling picture of a shadowy inner circle within the national squad, a closed fraternity that fiercely bolted the doors against her. History offered dark, haunting parallels in women's athletics, echoing tales where rising phenomenons found themselves systematically frozen out by deeply threatened veterans and established royalty. Forced into the agonizing role of the brilliant pariah, she possessed absolutely zero incentive to trade artificial banter or force empty laughter behind closed locker room doors. Those viral clips of her completely tuning out the surrounding media circus merely showcased a powerful woman recognizing her own staggering value, entirely exhausted by petty mind games while executing her craft at an unparalleled level. Should her unapologetic greatness make the establishment squirm in their seats, that deep discomfort belonged entirely to them, resting nowhere near her conscience. She laced up her sneakers in the pursuit of absolute national glory, utterly indifferent to petty drama, which left observers fiercely demanding answers as to why the management allowed this toxicity to fester. A glaringly isolated marquee talent standing visibly detached from the collective signaled a colossal, undeniable collapse in leadership from the absolute top down. However, if those very same leaders actively orchestrated her banishment from the press microphones and the starting five, the isolation morphed into a calculated, deliberate assassination of her momentum. The sinister reality suggested a management desperate to harvest the massive victories her talent guaranteed, while simultaneously paralyzed by the fear that her overwhelming star power would completely devour the squad's established identity. They gleefully allowed the prodigy to shoulder the agonizing offensive burden with a blistering 60% shooting clip, yet fiercely maneuvered to crown her rival as the ultimate face of the franchise. This intense, silent war for control unfolded before the world's very eyes, with leaked backstage glimpses finally exposing the breathtakingly frigid, toxic reality haunting the arena's shadows. The cold, hard numbers violently shattered any illusion of justification for her demotion. Producing a staggering 15 in the efficiency column established her as an undisputed global juggernaut. Pacing the entire roster in assists proved that she flawlessly fed her peers the rock during the heat of battle, completely regardless of the crushing silence that separated them off the hardwood. The superstar fueled absolute demolitions on the scoreboard, violently crushing the vocal doubters who foolishly claimed her artistry would crumble under the brutal, physical nature of international competition. While systematically carving out her undeniable throne on the global stage, she somehow endured brutal treatment fitting a totally unproven, wildly fortunate scrub at the end of the rotation. Little mystery remained as to why the phenomenal guard sought the silent, unjudging companionship of a blank arena wall. The profound disrespect festered like a disease from deep within her own camp, leaving a fiercely loyal fanbase as the sole voice crying out against the glaring, undeniable injustice. The rival star's sudden obsession with defensive hustle added a fascinating layer of intrigue, especially after boldly proclaiming to the press that anyone on the roster could effortlessly drop 30 points, framing her own relentless guarding as a noble sacrifice. On the glittering, polished surface, such a statement masqueraded as the ultimate, selfless display of championship camaraderie. Digging deeper, however, those carefully chosen words echoed with the unmistakable ring of a calculated, razor-sharp insult aimed directly at those who lived to light up the scoreboard. With an absolute offensive juggernaut sharing the locker room, listening to a peer casually dismiss the grueling art of scoring felt like an undeniably targeted, venomous strike. A cunning narrative began to take shape, one framing herself as the fiercely determined, blue-collar defensive general, while casting the other strictly as the flashy, one-dimensional offensive weapon. It birthed a legendary venomous rivalry, made infinitely more complex by the shared crest on their uniforms, setting the stage for an explosive crucible against the Spanish national squad. Confronting such a formidable European titan meant raw, unadulterated talent would fall woefully short. Sheer survival demanded an unbreakable, unified front. Should the icy ostracization persist, the simmering tension threatened to ignite a catastrophic, deeply humiliating meltdown under the glaring stadium lights. The brutal reality of the sport dictated that the silent treatment would eventually shatter the delicate geometry of passing angles and fiercely compromise every single defensive rotation. Thus far, the isolated phenom had summoned enough sheer professionalism to operate at an absolute most valuable player tier, yet every human soul possessed a fragile, explosive breaking point. Should the orchestrated benchings and forced media blackouts drag on, the mounting fury threatened to erupt in a spectacular explosion that no amount of polished public relations spin or carefully curated rival interviews could ever hope to conceal. A staggering avalanche of fan votes anointing her as the tournament's supreme player painted a crystal-clear, undeniable picture of where true public loyalty resided. The passionate masses cared absolutely nothing for toxic hidden cliques or who played the humble, unselfish saint for the flashing camera lenses. The roaring crowd simply demanded to witness pure greatness unchained, widening a terrifying, ever-expanding chasm between the loyal spectators and the national team's aristocratic brass. Millions hungered for her actual voice, desperate to unravel the brilliant mind and fierce emotions burning behind her spectacular on-court warfare. By ruthlessly barricading their brightest star from the press gallery, the organization inadvertently threw gasoline on a raging, uncontrollable inferno of public obsession. Each instance, they paraded her rival before the reporters instead. It reeked of a desperate, manufactured illusion, a pathetic attempt to market a harmonious brotherhood that was nothing more than a ghost story. Such grim realities forced a chilling question to the surface. What ominous destiny awaited the WNBA and the nation's most sacred basketball institution? When the single most magnetic force in the athletic world faced deliberate, systematic sabotage at the hands of her own sisters-in-arms, it heralded the dawn of a deeply terrifying era. The venomous detractors previously whispered about were horrifyingly real, lurking far beyond the digital, cowardly shadows of social media platforms. These enemies breathed the exact same air inside that highly secure locker room, making her superhuman ability to obliterate the malice and absolutely dominate the scoring column. A breathtaking monument to her indestructible psychological armor. Yet, wearing the national colors should never condemn an athlete to absolute crushing isolation. That glaring video capturing her abandoned in the shadows must serve as a blaring alarm for the entire organization. The rival guard emphasized a chameleon-like strategy to secure victories, shifting seamlessly between distributing the ball, crashing the boards, and orchestrating plays, a selfless mentality that staff members absolutely adore. The sharpshooter's methodology, however, revolved around pure, unadulterated conquest. She harbored zero desire to fade into the background. Her path to triumph relied on simply outclassing every single person stepping onto the hardwood, and this profound ideological clash stood at the very core of their ongoing Cold War. While one competitor desperately sought to fit within the established machinery, the other athlete essentially operated as the entire engine herself. Throwing these contrasting forces into the same arena without a masterful leader to mend the divide inevitably birthed the suffocating quiet and those internet-breaking clips of her staring blankly at the masonry. International competition notoriously brought brutal physicality, a detail heavily discussed by her peer, yet the scrutinized star absorbed that punishment with astonishing resilience. Shattering the baseless whispers branding her as fragile or merely a perimeter threat, she consistently attacked the interior, converting tough baskets despite relentless defensive hacking. With every single contest that tipped off, she systematically dismantled the arguments of her harshest detractors. Tragically, silencing the skeptics only deepened her solitary confinement, proving that greatness remains a desolate summit when the rest of the roster refuses to share in the glory. Behind closed doors, the chaotic leaked tape revealed a squad merely content with participating, contrasting sharply against a relentless warrior entirely drained by the surrounding theatrics. Would the exiled phenom ever actually be permitted to address the media beneath the bright lights? This singular mystery completely consumed the minds of observers everywhere. The looming date of March 17th carried immense championship weight, forcing the squad under an intense microscope to display genuine cohesion. Should their primary offensive weapon vanish from the microphones yet again, the gesture would speak volumes. Such a glaring absence would confirm that this deliberate ostracization carried the explicit blessing of the organizational brass. Hordes of devoted spectators rapidly overwhelmed digital forums with fierce speculation, largely agreeing that the generational talent had fallen prey to toxic locker room scheming. Although she executed her hardwood duties with lethal precision, the establishment cruelly stripped away the off-court validation she rightfully earned. The brewing tempest connecting these two distinct luminaries seemed destined to entirely shape the narrative of this modern athletic generation. Destiny permanently intertwined their legacies, yet in reality, an unfathomable chasm currently separated their souls. One bathed in the glow of journalistic favoritism by delivering perfect soundbites, whereas the historic record breaker suffered the agonizing fate of a total pariah. That unauthorized glimpse behind the curtain offered much more than a fleeting silence. It laid bare an institution rotting from the inside out. Pretending the franchise cornerstone does not exist while chasing enduring championship glory remains a mathematically impossible delusion. Those thinly veiled slights echoed with deafening volume, guaranteeing an explosive breaking point once the mounting animosity finally boils over. In the end, the embattled icon resided on an isolated planet entirely of her own making, and whether she intentionally sought refuge or was violently shoved into the margins, the brutal reality remained unchanged. She stood tall as the ultimate offensive juggernaut in the lineup, yet simultaneously existed as the loneliest breathing soul within the arena walls. Heading into the looming battlefield against the Spanish national squad, the global audience would certainly look far beyond the changing digits above the court. Every camera lens planned to ruthlessly stalk the timeouts, the sidelines, and the tunnel, demanding to know whether the American collective could forge genuine brotherhood, or if the malicious banishment of their brightest supernova would forever curse their championship run. Spectators watched the agonizing evolutionary cramps of an entire industry violently buckling under the gravitational pull of a once-in-a-century phenomenon. The transcendent prodigy functioned as an absolute magnet for fierce, unyielding debate. Without uttering a single syllable, her profound quiet managed to ignite countless conflicting narratives across the media landscape. Yet, the digital evidence presented an undeniable truth. A colossal barricade divided her from her peers, extending far deeper than the concrete structure supporting her back. With the most valuable player campaign reaching a fever pitch and the climactic matchups drawing near, all hidden secrets were destined to bleed into the light. Until that moment arrived, the established inner circle protected their exclusive clique, leaving the exiled mastermind armed with nothing but her historic box scores.